Welcome to this edition of Week in Review here on the Loma Linda Broadcasting Network. I'm Marlon Paley, and with me is Ganem Hanna, as usual. We're here to talk about a number of things that happen at LLBN, like what's happened in the past week or weeks, and what's going to be occurring in the very near future here at LLBN. So, Ganem, what are our plans for the very new future, or shall we talk about the recent past?
Well, I mean, the recent past is just as critical as the future, because we're always planning, we're building our infrastructure, building our strategic planning to accommodate the future. So it's kind of like both sides of it are critical and important. The Lord had blessed this ministry, Marlon, in so many ways throughout the past. History speaks for itself very clearly. Since '94 to present time, God has led and led and led again all these years, this ministry in an amazing way, from wonderful, faithful people to amazing miracles taking place in equipment, in deployed technologies, in saving us from catastrophic disasters while we were not aware of it, and He makes us aware of it before it does occur, and so on. So the future is for us to continue sustaining our channels, improve our programming, and utilize every distribution mechanism we can find to reach out to the masses.
Well, an example of that is this program that we're doing right now. This is kind of a miracle story because of the location, because of the set and everything like that. We do this program in order to give our viewers more information.
Absolutely. We you know, there's so much takes place behind the scene, and so many wonderful people are involved in this ministry. We feel that it's critical, it's important that we share these reports with our donors, with our viewers, to understand how the Lord is blessing this ministry. To watch the day in, day out programs, it really doesn't tell you the miracle story. So in every essence, this program, it helps people to understand what God is doing here, what God's people are doing as well with their Creator, to reach out to them with daily programming.
I like your idea of taking a trip behind the scenes. So let's do that now. Let's talk about the Main Street Studio. First of all, what is the Main Street Studio?
Well, you know, that was one of our first official location. As you know, and our viewers may know or not know, that LLBN was kind of birthed from University Church area. LLBN has always been an independent, nonprofit ministry.
Yeah, our first studio was Studio 104, part of the church classrooms.
So the space was hosted by University Church for quite a few years, actually. And then we kind of stood up on our feet a little bit and found an old place in Loma Linda, as you see, you know, on the screen here soon. It was a very, it actually was an abandoned warehouse, mini warehouse, if you want to call it that. And we purchased that property. God, through a number of miracles, He helped us purchase that property. Even when the money was not available, the deals were closed in the most amazing way. And one day we'll share these stories.
Well, the money comes from a variety of different sources for different projects, doesn't it? From totally unexpected sources.
You know, we can never predict where the money is going to come from. In that particular case, when we bought this building that we're showing on the screen, when we bought that building, it was just a tin building. And we couldn't get the money. We didn't qualify. We being a nonprofit organizations, very few banks wants to give you money unless you got some major reserves, and we did not have major reserves. And just to cut through the chase and cut this, you know, keep the story short, our treasurer was talking with a friend of his while they're having breakfast at a restaurant, and mentioned to him how discouraged I was for not being able to obtain funds to borrow the money to buy the building. And a total stranger, retired colonel, Air Force colonel, retired, non-Adventist, a Christian man, walked up to their table and he said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to butt in your conversation, but I couldn't help hearing your situation. How much money you're looking at?" And that led to closing the deal through that gentleman who lended LLBN the money with no collateral, almost with a handshake, total stranger. We ended up using the money he lended us to buy the building that you see on the screen. We spent a year and a half remodeling that place, upgrading it, which has served us extremely well over the last 10, 15 years. I don't know, 12 years maybe, 10, 12
100 years. It seems like 100 years.
Yeah, it does seem like 100
that
years.
was really our first home on our own.
Yeah, it really was. So that building you look at became originally part offices and part studio. And since then, we grew bigger and bigger. Our needs and demands increased for physical space, storage, offices, and so on. So we designated that building as a studio only for live church service for the Latinos and for the Arabic channel, as well as for the larger venues that's more than just two talking heads.
Yeah, like a choir or
exactly.
A gathering.
Exactly. And
gathering place comes to mind.
One of them, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
And for many reasons, we needed extra space. We had to rent this other building that you see here in the video. It's a whole different building. It's about maybe half a mile away from that.
It's brand new.
It is brand new. The owner of this building cut us a good deal. He was generous in his offer. He remodeled the whole place for us from his pocket. We didn't spend a penny out of our pockets to walk in this place. He gave us a very generous lease for 5 years fixed, no monthly increase. But it would increase only once at the end of the term. If we renew for another 5 years, he would only increase it by another 3%, fixed for the consecutive 5 years. So God, listen, if a man...
That's an unheard of deal. I have to just say this.
In the retail market, yes.
You never find prices like that in this area. They'd rather have the building empty.
Absolutely. I've seen them all over Southern California, empty spaces and warehouses. You're absolutely right.
So that's a miracle.
One thing is we have to acknowledge, we as a faith ministry, it's very critical. We put all emphasis on God and Jesus. I mean, ultimately, they are responsible for what takes place. As simple as it might appear to other people, for those of us in the trenches, and every penny is carefully counted and measured on how we can spend it, God seems to provide exactly what we need for the price that we want to pay. So you got to give God His glory. You got to recognize Him as He is our God and Father and Creator, and He's ultimately the one in control of all matters of this ministry as well as our lives. And when we submit to Him, great things happen, and that's why this ministry has been succeeding all these years, Marlon.
Amazing, amazing. Now, there has been a transformation going on at the Main Street Studio. You want to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, I know next week you told me that we're going to show more in-depth report about that.
Sure.
But in part of collaborations with Stu Hardy, which we showed our viewers last week, we'll bring you another report from Stu Hardy next week. We decided to designate that studio again like a mini auditorium for the larger events. Larger studio that can house viewers. I say viewers, what would you call them? Attendees, guests, an audience, mini audience.
Audience, that's a good one.
I can't find the right word. And use it for the larger venues. And working with Stu Hardy and University Church, they are repurposing some of their good equipment that they have just retired from the church to go into the studio to upgrade our 12-year-old cameras, which we have depleted them. To replace our cameras and to replace our control room. And next week you'll see more of an in-depth report on that. And listen, this is another God's miracle. This is another a direction from God. He brought us together, even though we're two separate entities. They need to raise their funds to pay for their bills. We need to raise funds to pay for our bills. But it's wonderful how God had put our ministries in harmony. Not at odds, but at harmony to serve Him and to serve His people better.
Many of our viewers are confused about the relationship of University Church and LLBN. There's a lot of people who think that LLBN is part of the University Church, belongs to the University Church, and therefore supports LLBN 100%. Financially or equipment-wise. Right. But that's really not true, because LLBN is an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means we are as different as the church in La Sierra as the University Church.
Right.
They're not really connected, although they have a ministry.
Yes.
It's a separate ministry.
But look, God, in all His infinite wisdom, brought me from a strange land, as He brought you and Gary and Daryl and Hannah and so many hundreds others. Didn't put us in Texas, didn't gather us in Ohio. He gathered us in Loma Linda, where there is a university church, a mile and a half away from us, and we will work in collaboration.
And that's what the agreement with Stu and the University Church with LLBN is all about. That's why we have to have that kind of special relationship to draw the two organizations together.
So they have given us a wonderful service every week. Their church service. It costs them money. They tape it and they give us live feed. We pick it up by fiber that we put in between the facilities. We carry and we pay for the airtime to put it on satellite and put it around the world. So each one playing their part responsibly. And God kept it together, Marlon, all these years. This is almost 19 to 20 years we've been doing this. Glory to Him. It just gives me chills in my back how powerful God is, that in spite of all the changes in leadership and people on both sides, God kept the spirit together between these two ministries to serve Him, to provide glory to His name.
So we're going to have an in-depth look next week at what they're actually doing to that studio. But in the meantime, to make that possible, we had to develop a second location.
That's correct. That's correct. And
which we are sitting in right now.
That's correct. And then it has, it's sizable. But in upcoming weeks, we want to talk with our viewers about building our own space. We have to. A year ago, we talked about buying space. Then we changed directions because we recognized halfway through that wasn't really what God has in store for us. We're back to the original plans where we had purchased a land 10 years ago. We owned the land next to our main studio. A few years ago it was difficult for us to build for some city and regulation issues.
Cedar councils come and go.
Things has changed, and the train path behind us changed. They don't have to blow the whistles anymore. So now we want to build that studio next to our current studio, where we're completely centralized. Luckily we took a lease on this building. It's been already, believe it, 3 years?
I think it's going on 3 years.
It's almost 3 years. So that gives us enough time to build our other building, get it in place. We're going to talk to our viewers. We're going to have good heart-to-heart talk to them about this. We want to build it. I think it's very manageable dollar-wise. It will be on our own property and in Loma Linda, where God has chose for us to start our ministry. And we will stay in Loma Linda. And hopefully, in His willing, we will re-centralize again, and it'd be just a time where we'd be out of this lease. But it takes time to build and develop. And look how long we've been in this space, 2.5 years before we've got it all up and running to the specs we wanted to. But we also don't want to keep paying, as good the rates are, we don't want to keep paying lease. We want to be able to put that money toward building a building.
So all of this is to further the dissemination of the saving grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
It is 100% about Jesus, and His soon coming. That's all it's all about. And without Him, you and I and everyone else will be lost, and we'll be living in darkness. And we're so glad that we're so blessed that we can be part of a ministry to bless millions around the world, Marlon. What a miracle. What a miracle.
And we're looking for miracles to keep continuing. I mean, he's provided everything that we need.
He always has provided, and He will always continue to provide.
Then why does it feel like it's not enough? Why are we always scratching? I mean, we need to hire a whole bunch of employees, but we just don't have the support or the funding to add to the staff. In fact, we've had to reduce staff. We've only got two full-time people here.
You just raised a $100 million question.
I mean, we're living in Loma Linda. The whole country thinks that this is where all the money is.
Right.
But yet we can't raise enough money to pay minimum wage for additional staff.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but this is where it's the miracle of it. This is where God shines.
Are you saying that is a blessing, that we can't do this?
Well, I have to believe in my God and Creator. It's a true evidence that He is in control. He's running the show with or without the big dollars. He's making it happen. This is the greatest miracle, that He puts it together in spite lack of funding. So go figure, Marlon. I mean, glory to Him. How can anyone argue about His might?
No, I'm going to invite our viewers to pray about this thing, because this is a kind of like a starting point where LOBN really has to grow. We've been doing this 17 years or so, and it's time to break out of that shell, isn't it?
In His time, I used to be anxiously every year working on strategic plans and trying to figure out fundraising ideas and so on. You know what? Our focus right now to share the good news, let you ask for the money, we keep doing the work, and God provides.
Well, I'm not asking for money yet. I'm going to be asking for money, but I'm asking for prayers, because that's the key. That's the key, the communication with our Creator. He loves to hear from us, and He wants to open the gates so that we be flooded with blessings. And we are flooded with blessings. I mean, we're living in the richest nation in the world.
That's right. And
it's too easy to say we have want of nothing. But if we're reminded of our needs and our wants, that draws us closer to our King, doesn't it?
He keeps us humble and keeps us on our knees and keeps us recognize Him as the God of gods and the only God we ever worship.
Well, what's the next thing on your list that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think we're almost out of time, Marlon.
Well, then
Long time ago.
Well, we'll see you the next time.